sirens blare. Feel the static in the air. Next gen rising, we don't care about the fear clinging there. Step in line, hear the beat drop. Body, mind, so we don't stop. We won't stop. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly. March to the future, neon glow. Through the fire we will grow. Every move a deadly flow. Next gen rising, let it show. Eyes ahead, the rhythm calls. Stand up tall, we break the walls. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly.
Hit the ground and slide it there. Feel the static in the air. Stand rising, we don't care about the fear you're clinging there. Step in line, hear the beat drop. Body, mind, so we don't stop. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly. March to the future, neon glow. Through the fire we will grow. Every move a deadly flow. Next gen rising, let it show. Eyes ahead, the rhythm calls. Stand up tall, we break the walls. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Next Gen Training here on the Sparta HQ Network. I am Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, the Coach Fergie, in the building tonight. Good to see you guys here on this Thursday. I know NFL games going on. Philly and Giants is going on right now, so I'm kind of looking at that in my other screen here. But certainly hope you guys are certainly enjoying this time of year, getting to the fall, starting to feel the fall weather a little bit. It was only in the 60s today, and so yeah, definitely you got to dress up a little bit warmer. But hope that everything is going well with you guys. Make sure you hit the like button certainly as you come in tonight. Also consider becoming a member, a subscriber to the network, and certainly we appreciate the support as we're very close to monetization. So certainly any support that you give us, if you appreciate the content that we give, we'd appreciate any support that you may give us. But it's always a pleasure to share the stage with the coach, my brother in bald opinions, two bald opinions on the show here. But how you doing today? How you doing tonight, coach? And how are your pies, your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual well-being? How you doing, sir?
What's up, brother Bennett? Man? My pies, my physical. Hey, uh, been having a few doctor's appointments. I had a test for arthritis. Now they're doing a test for carpal tunnel because I'm getting some numbness in my arms and hands and things. And so I have I have a big exam tomorrow. Uh, Me and my wife, she's gonna take me tomorrow. So, um, physically it is what it is, man. My body ain't what it used to be, but I'm trying to hold on to it in my mind. Intellectually, just been thinking a lot again, man. I'm excited about uh, what's coming up next week with coaching and be coaching young ladies, young people. So that'll be interesting. So I'm, been thinking about that, how I'm going to run the team, had a meeting with the assistant coach, young lady, I think in her 20s. So be my first time working with a female coach. So um, I guess emotionally, I'm excited. I'm excited, man. The weather's changing. Um, I'm just anxious again, man. Just get out here and teach some young people how to really play the game and enjoy the game of basketball. So, and spiritually, I'm connected to my family. I'm connected to this space. This is where I'm at, and just to my Most High, man. So, amen.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good on my end. I had my annual physical last week, and the numbers were pretty good. There were a couple things that my doctor sort of brought to my attention, but nothing to worry about at this point. I may do a couple follow up visits and whatnot. She wants me to go for some blood work in a couple in a couple months. But overall, pretty good. And it's weird because I had this year been battling, just minor things. Not quite right. You talked about the arthritis, so starting to get some in my thumb here. So like I do a lot of texting, so it's like I'm starting to feel a little bit in the fingertips and whatnot, and just some minor aches and some pulls and whatnot just from training. And so I was telling her, yeah, this is like the first year I kind of felt my age a little bit. So still being consistent, still staying ahead of things, but definitely gonna I turned 56 certainly towards the end of the month, and so certainly as always you'll do an evaluation of of my current program if I had to make some changes to it or whatnot. But definitely trying to stay consistent with that. But overall, I was pretty happy with the numbers. Cholesterol is good, and blood pressure is good. So so all those markers are much better than I expected them to be. And so it's just a matter of how can I just build from here. So physically is pretty good. Certainly intellectually, again, certainly always learning. Sort of job keeps me busy that way, and just how to just make this space even better. So you're always challenged to say, like, when I prepare content for the show, how can I present it in such a way that is tangible, certainly to the audience. So that takes a lot of intellectual involvement in order to do that. And emotionally, always in good place. Spiritually is a main reason for that. So everything kind of feeds one thing, feeds another. You know what I mean? So staying spiritually grounded kind of helps you out in all different areas. So having a good perspective overall. But for everyone else in the chat tonight, how are your pies? Hopefully everything is going well with you and with yours. And certainly look forward to this topic tonight. A lot of information certainly to share tonight, and so certainly, and again, this is just opinions of guys. We've been in capacities. I've been in hiring capacities. So I've had to not only create resumes, I've had to go through resumes, so, bring in, some of the things that I've learned over the years, certainly to the table. I know coach, he certainly, helped a lot of young people as far as getting some things started. Last week's show, so again, in this series, we're dealing with this idea of, applying for work and, and whatnot, and, getting your career started. Um, so last week was a really good show because again, the coach he shared with us a great resource that young people can use to find not only jobs but just information on different industries, pay scales, and whatnot. In terms of outlook for potential work in the fields and whatnot. So there's some good resources out there that you can really do your research on to make sure that you find something that aligns with your interests and skill sets. And so that was basically a part one show. So again, how to look for work and filling out the job applications or whatnot as they're available. Tonight's show we're going to focus a bit on resumes and cover letters tonight. Cover letters. As I got closer, I was thinking about this, and I know, Coach, you would share some information on it. But I'm starting to think in certainly in today's time, in 2025, and I was just looking up some just different groups and different people who wrote on it. The need for cover letters, it seems to be a lot less now than it might have been in our time. Okay, back in the time when we still used typewriters back in the day. So the value of a cover letter may not be what it once was, but at the same time, we're going to share certainly some information with you if you decide to use a cover letter. What the format and breakdown of it should be. But I think that if I was to say when's the best time to submit a cover letter, it's probably if you had an interaction. A cover letter, just like any letter that you write, it is a personal communication to someone who you may know. So let's just say if you are at a job fair or some sort of networking event and you happen to meet someone who may have opportunities for for employment and whatnot, and you had a nice exchange and you shook hands and say, hey, look forward to hearing from you or whatever, or reach out to me. I think a cover letter is nice because again, it re-engages the conversation, especially if you have that person's direct contact. So I think it's a nice way to reintroduce yourself to someone, and then you can certainly submit the resume with that. But Coach, what do you think about that as far as the value of cover letters in today's time versus, like I said, back 30, 40 years ago when we were just getting underway? Do you still see the value in them as much now as back then?
It's interesting, right? Because when I was applying for these positions for coaching, none of them asked for a cover letter.
Right.
So I guess it depends on the industry, and I guess the tier of position that you're looking to apply to. I wouldn't necessarily think you would need a cover letter if you want to work at Amazon or FedEx or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
But when you're
Right.
getting into more of these, I guess, high-end tech jobs, these corporate positions, I think a cover letter would suit you well. Definitely, as you said, with with some form of interaction, maybe a telephone after a short telephone interview or something like that, or if you know someone that knows the hiring boss, you can just see how you can make that connection and shoot them a little cover letter.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, I haven't really seen it as prevalent as it was in the past, especially during that late 80s, 90s period when
Yeah.
everybody was
Yeah.
asking for a cover letter. But most recently in the last 5 years, I haven't really seen it, but
Yeah,
again,
yeah. Like I said, I think it's a personal space. In fact, if our admin in the back, if you could share the slides, we can slowly go through and just maybe just highlight some bits and pieces from that. So again, tonight just dealing with, and if you could just slide us over, I guess to the left, I think that'd be good because I think my that'll work out
there
a little
you
bit
go.
better. You can shrink us down. We don't have to be that big either.
Yeah, we don't have to
Because
be that big.
we want to focus on the content. But
Sure.
certainly, yeah. So cover letters and whatnot. Some of the do's and don'ts of what you need to do there. So again, just to touch on, okay, what goes into a cover letter. And a lot of it, if you look at the outline, it's not that much different from that of a resume. So you're gonna have your opening, to who it may concern, the serve matter, the reason why you're writing. Again, it could be just to reconnect from, hey, it was a pleasure meeting you at the job fair, at the, wherever the spot was, again, to introduce yourself. If you talked about a position in particular that you're applying for, you can certainly reference that, go a little bit into your background, education. Again, a lot of this is going to be covered in the resume. So again, you may not need to go into this much detail. So I certainly think the first three are going to be critical as far as your specifics in terms of your education experience. Again, they're going to be able to find that. But the other key is, again, why are you best for this position? All right. So again, you might have been talking to a recruiter about a certain position or whatnot. You could just, kind of have some bullet points and highlights about why you think you could fit that particular position, your closing comments. Again, thank you for taking the time to consider my application. Or again, it was very nice to meet you at the luncheon, at the networking event, or what have you, and then a proper sign off. So these are things that could still be, as Coach said, depending on your industry, a cover letter could be a nice touch. But what I'm also finding probably as important now as the cover. So we're not going to cover it in detail tonight because I didn't really prepare for it, but probably what I'm seeing now more of is not so much the cover letter, because again, your resume is going to speak a lot for you in that sense, but the follow-up letter, the post-interview letter. In fact, when we have our show on preparing for an interview, we may cover that as well, because that is how, so again, after the interview process, a letter to the recruiter or to those who interviewed you. Thank you for the opportunity to interview with the company. I appreciated the opportunity. And it seems like, you guys are working with very exciting things. I would like to be a part of it. Something like that I'm seeing a lot more of. The communication after the interview, whether you get the job or not, it's just a nice touch, more so than the cover letter itself. But again, we want to make these resources available to you so you'll know. So again, your opening, your reason for writing, introducing yourself, your education and experience. Again, I wouldn't harp too much on that, because again, most of that is going to be covered in the resume, which we're talking about tonight. Why you're best for the position, your closing comments, and your sign off. Okay, so those are keys. Those are important keys that you can have certainly in your letter, and you should use, again, a standard format letter. If you're using Word or whatnot, you could just look up templates, and they'll have a template already there for you in terms of what's a proper letter. I know back in the day, Coach, we had to learn how to write letters, right? I mean, that was part of our English classes in terms of your introduction, your header, where things go. Now with these most of these Word programs now, they got a template there. All you got to do is just plug and play, put stuff in, fill the body out, and you're kind of done. But we were actually graded on our ability to write, not only to type as well as to write formal letters. That was actually part of our education back in the day. So I still remember those. I still remember those classes, and so again, a nice way to kind of set things off. But again, depending on the job, or in some place now, especially if you're applying online. So again, let's say if you have like a LinkedIn profile or on one of these job sites or whatnot, they usually have places where you can upload a resume. And then with that resume, it'll auto fill out the application on the particular site if there's a link to go to that website. So, so certainly the resume is really going to be the place where you want to put a bulk of your time. But if they do have an opportunity to submit a cover letter, then again, you'll have this format here of what to include in a cover letter in order to, again, hopefully, give a little extra detail and attention. But again, I think personal interaction is where a cover letter is gonna cover you the best. Any other things before I move on to the resume
But
pieces?
I would just think, even if you haven't interact with somebody and you go to a company website and they list the requirements for applying for that position, if they do ask for a cover letter,
Yeah, for sure.
you don't really have to address that to someone specific. You can say, "Dear sir" or "ma'am."
Yeah.
That's how you can address it, and just focus on, like you said, don't be specific with the qualities. Just highlight the position you're applying for, what qualities you have aligned with that position, and just things like that. How maybe your education ties into it, maybe your past positions may tie into the current position that you're looking to, get hired for, and just, again, don't be too long, but don't be too short. I would say no more than 3 paragraphs, no more than that. And I think the format, was it AP format? We used to have to learn it in the AP
It was
format.
well, it was certainly
12 font,
yeah, yeah. Well, see, that
very
actually came
specific.
after me because I remember, like I said, I didn't really get into computer stuff until college. So that was when you
Yeah,
had computers became part of your coursework then. But really, it was
yeah,
in,
that
like I
was
said,
like,
typing class. We had
yeah,
well, we had real
definitely typing.
we had real typewriters, not word processors, and you had to actually
Yeah,
press the keys. Your
yeah, I
fingers
had
got
that
to work
class.
out because you had to do them hard strokes on the
Yeah,
use
you
the
had to do a hard stroke.
A space, B space, et cetera, et cetera. So I still came up, in that era, but again, word processing made a lot of that stuff easier. But just in writing a handwritten letter, we had to learn that in grammar or what have you. So again, your header, where you put the date and whatnot, the body at the end, how you end the letter, very truly yours, et cetera, et
Conclusion,
cetera.
all that.
Yeah, so we had to, so we were actually graded on that. Like I remember 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, we had to get good at that because again, handwritten letters was still a common form of
It was the
communication
way of business. Yeah.
back in the day. And also your penmanship was also graded certainly back
Ooh-wee.
then. So again, if your stuff was like illegible, then you certainly you would have a hard time. So your cursive writing or print, whatever, you had to work on that if you want to be graded properly. So those things go into it. But let's get into the resume essentials. So again, the key parts that go into a resume, and again, we're going to try to keep this into as far as a modern context. That there's certain things that'll always be standard, but we're going to try to highlight areas that are more pertinent for today. But obviously, your contact information, and again, where it goes, and again, you can open up, if you open up Word or something, there's all kinds of different resume templates to use. Now, one thing I would caution you on is this: sometimes too much is in fact too much. Some of these resume templates that you may find within Word or what have you, they're a bit excessive. They got colors all over the place. There's places where you put your picture and whatnot. Now some guys, some industries, like if you're in a creative space, they may find that appealing to have all that sizzle in the resume. But again, ultimately what you're looking for is content. You never put the creative over the content. And so making sure that your resume clearly and concisely communicates what you want as far as applying for this particular position is number one. But people don't necessarily care how bold your font is, what fonts that you're using, or you got big letters, little letters, or whatnot. Is it clear? Is it concise? Is it legible? All right. So again, so you want to start off with your contact information. So certainly as listed here. Now again, you don't have to put your full address on a resume. The city and state that you live in is sufficient. And then if you have links, like again, a LinkedIn profile or one of the other job site profiles, if you want to put a URL specifically there, you can certainly do that. But again, you want to keep this you want to keep this clean. And so so starting off with your contact information, very important. But again, no need to put specific address details within a resume, unless you're mailing it in. Then obviously your mailing address is going to be on the outside of the envelope. But any thoughts on this, Coach? Before I move on.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about a resume with pizzazz and pizzazz and sizzle, right? In my website designer course, right, they taught us how to make infographic resumes. And part of that resume is having the sizzle on it. I would have a picture. I could use vector graphs for a telephone number. I can use that little vector image for telephone, the little at
Hmm.
sign for email, and really line everything up. Have a border, maybe a third of the from the edge, and just have everything line up from that with bullet points. And yeah, and even with the as you get into even just this contact information, know that it has city and state. I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting your specific
Correct.
address. Your city and state is suffice. And yeah, so you just use your city and state, maybe a zip code also. But yeah, not your specific home address on your resume.
Hmm.
They're going to get all that information if you get hired
Hmm. Yeah,
when you fill out documents.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Right. And essentially you talk about again, the sizzle and what I know people are putting pictures on
yeah,
resumes at
that's
this
part
point.
of it.
Now, again, I'm, just based on my experience, um, I like to kind of keep some of that ambiguous until I get
Hmm.
to the interview. Obviously, they're gonna see me when we get to the interview. So again,
Yeah,
I'm still call me, I don't want to be racial or what have you, but sometimes if depending on, a lot of hiring is subjective decisions. I want them to first see who I am through my resume before they see me as the person. And
yeah,
so I may not want to lead with, because again, you don't know who's there or whatnot. But again, the best candidate should get the job. So if I get to a point where I am, screened to a point, okay, let's bring this person in because we like what they say, then they're going to judge me on what I look like. But I may not want to put what I look like on the cover. Now, again, that's a subjective thing. I mean, I'm not saying not to do that, but again, it is a consideration. And again, it may depend on the industry that you're going into, and whatnot, and so again, so you might want to use some wisdom there, and you can have certainly different types of resumes as long as your content is correct and tight. Then you can then experiment with styles and templates and just different ways of expressing that information. But I would certainly
yeah,
lean on making sure that your information is correct first before going into the style. Never put style over substance. And so, so
yeah,
again, I've seen, so again, when I open up Word, they got all kinds of templates where, again, the person's pictures there and whatnot. Again, good. And again, and obviously, if you have a LinkedIn profile or some profile, it's encouraged that you have a picture of yourself on your LinkedIn, a professional photo, right? If you're a man, you might want to have like a button shirt or a suit jacket on with the with the tie on, profile, to tell about your face, a certain profile, the kind of 45-degree profile, etc. Your best side. All those things are certainly fine, certainly in the networking space to have those things there. But I may differ with Coach a little bit in that I may still want to hold off on a resume until the proper time. Or like I said, if they do want to see me, they'll see my picture on my LinkedIn, which I also put here a professional link, so they'll see me one way or another. And
yeah.
all
What
yeah,
what
go ahead.
No, just even with that, like I said, maybe a lot of when you start going into pictures, it was, and I believe I left this part. If I'm going into website design, something like that,
Hmm.
that's where that's more
Yeah,
acceptable when you're dealing with, what is that, software programming, things like
yeah,
that. Again, and I'll just say this about the professional links. It's important to get a business style email. You don't want to use
cosmic
something.
chaos 2401.
Yeah, you don't want to use something like Coach Coach Ferg 2025. No, it would be something professional, something where you can at least get. Um, if you're applying for positions, that would be the only email you would use for any professional contacts is that professional email, preferably like name, maybe some
Yeah.
initials, things like that. But and I wouldn't, and I don't. What I've done, started doing in the last 5 years, I don't put my identity of what ethnic group I identify as
Mhm.
on. I click, do not wish to answer.
Mhm.
You'll see me once I get there.
Right.
So
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where it starts with the contact info. Next, we're going to go into your summary objective. So again, now this can be specific. So again, a resume summary or objective is a brief statement at the top of the resume, show the employer at a glance why you're qualified for the job. So this is where I think you got to do your research a little bit on the job that you're applying for, and this is also a reason why you should have several resumes. Again, depending on the job, if your skills, like I work in the IT space, when the last job I was going for, I applied for a variety of different positions. Okay, so senior analyst, software, QA lead, business analyst. I mean, I could do all. I mean, I could very easily have floated into all three. And what those things did was it allowed me to apply to a variety of different positions. And so I didn't want just one resume just to be end all and be all for everything. Each resume again should really highlight the skill sets and the objectives that align most closely with the job you're applying for. And so depending on the job that you're saying, your summary should reflect that. If you're a business analyst, or if you want to get into coaching or whatever it is, it should align with the when you read the spec on what the job is and the job description, your wording should be such that aligns with that job description. So if the job says I need X, Y, and Z, well, I'm looking for a job with X, Y, and Z, essentially. Because it certainly helps get you quicker. They're going to be looking at you a lot quicker than if you say something generic but not something specific. It also shows that you've been paying attention to specifically what the job is and what most likely you'll be doing. So coach, any thoughts on the summary objective that you might want to amplify?
I mean, I think again, like you said, man, you're gonna highlight it maybe at the top of your resume, and be specific on the job you are applying to. I think it's important. Don't just say I want to apply for a job at your company.
Yeah.
No. What position are you applying
Janitor,
to?
mail
Yes,
clerk,
be very specific. I'm
cook.
applying to be a janitor. I don't know, whatever the fancy words that you, maintenance technician.
Hmm.
Be very specific in that. And that's all that sentence can be 15 words max. You just saying I am applying to this position,
Yeah.
specific, position, and pretty much leave it at that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Next portion. Okay, your skills and or highlights. Okay, so again, should be tailored to the job description. List out soft and hard skills. Now, soft skills might be, for example, your language, if you speak multiple languages or not. But your skill set is going to be, again, based on the jobs that you've had in the past. What of those skills, what are going to be most relevant to the job that you're applying for? Again, any job specific skills or highlights that a recruiter should know right from the start. Okay, so again, if you're a program, if you're a developer, if you took a certain course of study in a particular field that's related to the job that you are applying for. Again, there should be no ambiguity when it comes to what it is. They should be able to look at that, and it should align with, again, do your homework reading up on the profile of the job that you're looking before you apply for it. And we're going to get into another area later on about the conciseness of what that has to be. A resume is not an opportunity for you to tell your life story in. And again, especially for older people, this is probably, if you've been around for a while, I know we target this show towards young people, but anybody can take this information. If you're an older person, you may have to start cherry picking your experience to those things that most align with the job that you're applying for. So again, these are things to consider. It's not a resume. It's not a biography or an autobiography. So again, just make sure that you keep these this section and the one that comes after it. Make sure you keep these things very tight, very succinct, and also your language shouldn't be flowery or just going in a bunch of different directions. It should be again very concise with the job that you're applying for. Any thoughts on this? Actually, let me go to the next one. Then maybe we can summarize these. Maybe we can summarize these things together. Professional experience. So this one here, again, list out, again, current and previous work history. In most cases, you'll use a chronological order, but there are times when it should be useful to list experience in order of relevancy. Include your position title, name of the company or organization that you work for, the city and state, start and finish date. So again, this paired with the prior slide on the skills and highlights, these kind of go hand in hand. So the job that you had, what specifically did you do in that job that would be a nice fit for the job that you're applying for? Those things kind of go together. And the thing, like I said, especially if you're an older person, you've been around for a while, not every part of your experience is going to be relevant. Now, again, I've been in the IT game for over 30 years. There is technology that I worked with 30 years ago that nobody even knows about. They don't remember Windows 3.11, right? They don't remember, I don't think they understand C programming. Like, I don't think people use such things anymore, or those early web tools that were used back in the day. So again, if your skill set doesn't align with what's current, then all you're doing is taking up space in your resume that could be used for things that are more relevant and more recent within your job experience. So, Coach, your thoughts on both the skills or highlights, also aligning with your professional experience. Just before you do that, we gotta can you all
We
go?
went to the next slide. Did we go to the next slide?
Well, no, these two go together. So you got your skills or highlights, and you got your professional experience. So again, I brought these two together because again, you're gonna list the position or experience that where you were at, but then you're gonna highlight those things. You're gonna highlight those things that should be part of the that go along with that position. What skills or highlights from that position that you had? Again, especially those things are going to be relevant to the position that you're applying for.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So again, any comments on these? So I'm taking 5 and 6. I'm kind of combining those two together. So again, your thoughts on that combination of the two.
I mean, just like I say, when you list your work experience, you typically would put your current or last position at the top, and as they read down the resume, they'll see the other prior positions that you held. Again, it's important to put maybe the company name, your position, the length of time you worked there. You don't have to put the reason why you no longer work there, just dates, specifically months and year. And when your experience, you want to highlight the important things on the job. The actual position. I guess not the word I'm looking for. What actual activities you carried out in the position, what the skills you were acquiring during the position, whether it was typing business letters, whether it was filing, answering phone calls, writing lesson plans, all of those, the treatment plans, all of those things, be specific on what it was, any special programs you ran, things like that. And again, you don't have to be specific as far as the reason why you left, but the start and stop times by month and year,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty much.
The only thing I would add, amplify, is you don't necessarily need to describe the position. What you need to do is, especially again, it's called highlights on 5 here. Again, you want to highlight achievement. You want to highlight proficiency. If you type 70 words a minute, you want to put that in there. You know what I'm saying? You obviously, a secretary, yeah, you know there's probably going to be some typing. So you don't want to put in there, well, as a secretary, I type letters and sent them out. Well, yeah, that's kind of what a secretary does. But you want to, what special or unique about what you were able to do that was deemed as praiseworthy, even from the employee. So again, in this, give some thought to it. Think about when you got reviews or when you got praise for your job. What were you praised for in that position? That could be an asset to the job that you're applying for now. So it's not in it. If I'm a programmer, I'm not going to say, well, I develop programs, because that's what a programmer does. But what's specific about the programs that you may have created? What are some of the highlights? I created a program that yielded the company X amount of dollars, or that you help to improve efficiency in a company or a process by a certain amount. You want to highlight those areas within the resume, but don't get so focused on what your day-to-day job responsibilities were, because again, that should be inherent in the job title when you put it in there. So as Quiet King 24 is in the chat tonight. Yeah, I mean, if you send a link, I don't know if we'll be able to do it in this show here, but certainly we can give you some feedback, and maybe we can reconnect next week, and we can kind of give our 2 cents. Or if you want personally, drop your contact information in the chat, and we can certainly reach out to you in private, and maybe we can give our 2 cents on what you what you wrote. But he had a comment here: the type, the achievements more so as the job section, not what the job or was about. Right? You don't have to say I'm in maintenance. Oh, I mop the floors every day. Well, again, that's what goes with the job.
But if that's part of the job, it's not. You don't want to use like layman's terms. You want to use the professional term. Or there's another word besides you just mop the floors. You sanitize the floors daily.
Mm-hmm.
It's certain words you can use to ensure.
Yeah, but it
If
shouldn't
that's
be.
again, when you're young, you're not going to have all these great quality
That is,
skills. You're just going to create. You can use even your life skills as part of a job description if you have
right.
no
Well,
jobs.
right. So, like I said, those things. Again, those things from your job. If you can remember those things that are in your job that you were praised for, you know what I'm saying? That's a good place to start. Won several awards for, or I was voted employee of the month for a year straight because of my performance. You know what I'm saying? Those things are going to be important, as well as just the job title itself. That not only you did your job, but you did it with excellence, and you were recognized officially for the excellence that you employed in the job that you were that you were doing. So again, if you want to shout out to Craig Lucas in the house tonight, good to see you, sir. So again, this is something that you want to spend some time on, and if you were to go to like a resume doctor, this is the area that they're going to focus on the most. So I mean, it's so the it starts with, again, slide 6, where you list your professional experience. What you put in the highlights can make or break your resume. And so, so certainly this is an area that, and again, I've undergone resume doctors. I've, people who, some have done it for free, some in HR. who will volunteer for free to do that. I've given resumes to people who work in HR just to get some tips and highlights on certain things. So you want to, so this area here, how you word this is really, you start getting into the meat and potatoes of the resume. Um, so the next area to talk about here is, again, your education. So again, obviously, if you're in school, and by education, we don't necessarily mean high school per se. Again, because the expectation is that, any job that you apply for, either you're in the process of getting your high school diploma or GED. That should be, for most people, that's considered standard, that everybody should be able to do that. But if you've gone for higher education, certifications in specific skill sets, maybe you didn't go to college, but you went to trade school, or like a DeVry or tech school, or for auto mechanic or culinary school, or anything that you have certificates in, cybersecurity, those particular things, you want to be able to list those. If you've gone to a formal school that uses a grade point average, again, list it. But now, again, just based on the notes that I had, if you should put GPA if it's a 3.5 or better. Now, again, I might do 3.0 personally, but certainly if you getting out of school with a 2.5, you may want to not list your GPA in that manner. You might just want to say, look, I got my degree. If they really want to look or whatever, or if you ask personally, always answer truthfully in terms of what your GPA was or whatever. But again, anything above a 3.5 is worth noting. So if you're an engineer with a 3.5 or above, yeah, the idea is that you're pretty smart, right? Any degree that's a
I would
3.5 or better.
I wouldn't recommend that on the resume because that's going to be on your transcripts, and your transcript will be able to give a better detailed view of it, be based off your classes and things.
Mhm.
And I've never seen that on anyone's resume, or in reference to the GPA on the resume in the education. It's just maybe the certificates or honors that they receive,
Mhm.
but not so much the GPA specific, because as you get into those top tier jobs, I haven't seen one yet that doesn't ask for a transcript, whether it's unofficial or official copy.
Well,
So,
I would say this, like I said, if you are certainly a just out of school or young in your career, I've seen plenty of those. And like I said, if you're getting if you got a 4.0 or a 3.83, like it says here, above 3.5, I've certainly seen that a lot. But like I said, if it's not above 3.5, I don't know if it's necessarily worth mentioning
oh,
at that.
is it something that they elect to do on their own?
Yeah,
I
for
haven't
sure.
seen companies like request a GPA, but
Well, like I
people
said,
are proud of their GPAs when they get
right.
high
Like I
ones.
said, I
So,
mean, if you get 3.5 and above, you talk about cum laude, summa cum laude, magna cum laude. I mean, if you got those kind of honors, then by all means list them, because again, those are highlights that you went above and beyond the norm. You want to stand out from the rest. Most students don't get a 3.5 or above. So if that is you, and you can accurately state that, and again, don't lie on your resume and say you got a 3.5 when your transcript shows a 2.9. Don't do that either. But if you have things that are honorable, that you have distinguished honors from your study, by all means mention it. Now, for the older person if you've had a career for a while, then GPA isn't required. If you've been in the professional space for a long time, your competence in the field is going to be more important than the GPA, because you're so far removed from it. But either if you're still in school or you just recently graduated from school, that's where that stuff's going to matter. So my daughter, she just graduated cum laude from Rutgers. Yeah, put that in your professional profile. But outside of that, yeah, it's typically not required. So again, Quiet King, you said you had a 3.2 GPA. Yeah, try to work to get it over 3.5. And if you can get over 3.5, then it's worth mentioning. If you can't get it there, then just say, look, I got my bachelor's, my associates, my master's, whatever the degree is. All right. Coach, any more thoughts on this one before we go to the next one?
Nah, man.
Okay. All right. Next one here. Again, optional. So we covered the basics, right? We covered the basics of what goes into a resume. If that's not tight, nothing else matters. Okay. You got to make sure you take care of the main things. Now, if you want to flesh out your personal statement a little bit more, excuse me, then there's an optional section where you can add things to it. So like if you have, right, so associates until May 2027, so you got time to make it up, Quiet King. But if you belong to like a professional organization or charitable organization, just certain things, like I said, volunteerism, those things can matter more, can flesh you out, because I've seen also in my career, they don't necessarily want nerds. No insult to nerds. They don't want just smart people. They want to see, can you operate within a team? Do you have interests outside of just the classroom? There's a lot of people who might be book smart, but are they fully engaged? Are they community oriented? So again, you may want to use this section to list some of those things. You might have been a Boy Scout or an Eagle Scout, or a former military service, National Guard, Reserve, something that goes beyond just the education or the career. They want to know this is a real person, a whole person. Then by all means, you can use this section, but you don't lead with this information. And only if the resume space allows for you to have it there is where you will put this information in. But again, it can, if you belong to like a Greek fraternal organization, aka Alphas, Q Dogs, whatever that is, if you think that is worth, because again, it's all about networking. So if I'm an alpha and you give me a resume and say, oh, he's a member of alpha also, just human nature being the way it is, that may give you an edge or edge up, or at least, look, I got to look out for my brother. As I'm siphoning through 10 resumes, if one of the guys in fact, my daughter she's an AKA. She just got hooked up in her job with someone who's an AKA. So again, don't think those networking associations don't matter. A lot of times they will.
Yeah, they definitely matter, brother Benny. You're not an alpha. Right?
No, I don't
No,
belong. I was like, remember what was that, School Days? I was the pro Pan African, Brothers Unite sort of thing. We had fraternal brothers in our group, but we were more like the diaspora. We weren't, so I was definitely with Dab and those guys. We weren't with the one, and I wasn't going to pledge, especially back then. They had mad hazing back then. So I was like, no one's going to paddle me. I'm not getting branded. I'm not getting any of that stuff. So I stayed away from that stuff. But what about you?
I'm alpha. And again, I never thought that I would be, and over the years, that networking connection pays off. It has paid off in some capacity, because when you meet people, especially at professional events, and they always reveal it, then that's something that you have in common, and sometimes that can get your resume pulled, and get you in the hiring door. So I mean. And again, I don't think people look at it as in depth, as a networking tool. But once you do, I guess, join those organizations and you get into the professional world, it's sort of like a family. I've met some Omega Psi Phis that were really cool, really, looked out. some AKAs. Every female in my family is an AKA. Every
I
male is
got
an
I got
alpha.
two I got two of them now.
So
So
yeah, so salute to them. But just again, man, that whole family, man, it's part of that networking and
mhm,
saying
yeah,
putting those highlights on your resume. Sometimes
yeah,
I seen white fraternities do SAE. SAE is, man, they all over the country, man.
yeah,
It's just when you have that type of network, man, utilize it. You know,
yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, it's don't again. This is a product like everyone talks about merit and those sort of things, and certainly we encourage that. But again, we don't want to be naive either. People hire people who look like them or a part of what they do or what have you. Those are realities of the job world. Doesn't matter how qualified you are. Those non-tangibles, they can matter, especially when again everyone's qualified. But then what makes the difference? And be honest, some people just get hired simply because they like you better. Can do nothing about that. You just vibe. You in the interview or whatnot. Yeah, you got these people. Yeah, but I just vibe. I just rock with this person a little bit better than the other ones. Had nothing to do with your qualifications at all. But again, the qualifications get you in the room. What you do when you get in the room is going to be up to you. And again, we'll talk about that when we talk about the interview process. So you make sure that again, everything prior to this slide, everything make sure that is tight and concise. Work with again a resume doctor or someone who works in HR to get that wording correct. Skill sets that amplify, not just describe a job, but amplify your accomplishments or achievements in the job that you had, and make sure that's tight. And then these things here could be a bonus at the end. But like I said, you never want to put style over substance, right? But again, these things here can make you a lot more three dimensional if everything else is in order. Um, and here you can just look. This is just a sample resume, so it kind of highlights a lot of the things that we're talking about. Again, the summary, the highlights, the work experiences, and whatnot. And again, if you look at the language that's within here, the language is that of action. Not to say that I did this or I did that, but again, computed, maintain, placed, provide, again, those action terms, and again, if there are achievements that you got, awards that you got within those positions, then again, you will put them there under your highlights. Again, your education, whether you graduate from high school or college or whatever. Again, if you do have a high GPA, especially if you're coming out of school, like I said, I don't mind. Again, 3.5 and above, put it on there. Community involvement, yeah. Again, volunteer programming to pediatric placements in their families in a variety of medical settings. Again, it just shows more of your humanity, that you're not just about a job. Again, in some instances, it may make the difference between you and someone else. But again, the resume is clean, it's concise, it's not over wordy, it's not overly flashy. And so it drives the point home. When someone's reading it, they want to be able to read through easily on your resume. So keep it clean. Now again, style wise, once you get these things together, if you want to play with a few style templates or in certain areas, if you think it may let you stand out a little bit more, you can try it. But again, never put the style over the substance. And we're joined certainly by our guest tonight, CBN Tech Talks. Certainly good evening, sir. Anything you want to add or
Oh,
amplify in this conversation?
how about that? I want to let me get out of here.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Thanks for stopping through. But as coach was saying earlier, I mean, you could, certainly there's a lot of different templates that you can play with, but start with a foundation. And as we said earlier, make sure that you have several resumes specific to a position. So again, the summary here: part-time associate manager who is highly energetic, outgoing, detail oriented, or whatever. Now, again, some of this language you may pick up from the job description. The job description says we may need someone who's detail oriented, because you're going to be looking at some very intricate things. Again, use the language in the descriptions and then reflect in the summary as you're applying for the job. So make sure you research the position before you apply for it. Coach, any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, like you said, yeah, it's important to always research the position and sort of align your resume information with what the job is asking for as it pertains to that position. I would recommend, even on a resume, as you see bullet points, no more than about 5 to 6 most, maybe 6, and keep most of the past experiences uniform. Maybe about 5 to 6 bullets on each, very detailed, and highlight your achievements, things that allowed you to be in leadership positions and things like that, where you also created certain things within the company to make the job a little more efficient, and no more than, maybe depending on your work experience, your history, your age, try to keep it within 15 years or so or less. You don't want to go back to 1992 at 45.
Before maybe
So just,
BI, before the internet.
yeah,
I don't
just
know if you
keep
want to
it
go.
sort of 15, 20 years tops, if it's really something that that you still are up to, I guess, to code in, to really highlight your experience. But yeah, other than that, just maybe no more than 2 pages with your resume.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the the don'ts area that we're going to go over. So again, so some don'ts on a resume. All right. So don't, again, misrepresent work experience or education. Again, many companies conduct background checks, so make sure everything is verifiable. Again, this will get you not only with the position, but it could get you blackballed in certain respects if you lie on a resume. You don't want that kind of reputation getting around.
Don't lie.
Yeah. So again, only put there what you've done, and where you went to school, and what you majored in. Don't waver. It's amazing. Like we shouldn't have to explain that,
Explain
but
it.
in this world, especially now, people got people writing fake resumes, AI resumes, and things of that nature, making that they did all these things, and it's just not a good, practice to do that. Um, Next one. Uh,
Remember the congressman that wrote a fake resume, and when he was sort of revealed, they just went along with it, like, okay, you okay.
well, I know. I mean, obviously, there have been. I know there was a minister who was interviewed. I guess he was working for the
Politician.
Republican Party, something like that, and he was talking about all these degrees that he has. So he was on the show, and then they were like, "Oh, well, we found out you didn't graduate from that school, or the school has no record of you being there, and all those kind of things." And he's like saying humna 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 on national TV. Like he never went to did any of those things, but he just again inflated who he was on his personal website just to make him look better than what he was. And again, that stuff tends to, especially these days, as cynical as people are, that just comes back to bite you at the end of the day. So again, if you haven't done something, don't stop. These days, don't be capping. Right? There's a lot of people. There's a lot of cap out there right now, and you don't need to be capping about your resume. The next, don't avoid applying for jobs that have requirements that you do not meet. Okay, you have a better chance to demonstrate your competence for the job, which is your top priority. Now, some may say, look, you know, kind of throw a pebble in the water and see what happens or whatnot. Sometimes you may hear these stories, these kind of what was that? in pursuit of happiness stories or whatever, where the guy applied for something and didn't necessarily have the fan, but he made it work and all that. Again, that is, uh, that is the exception and not necessarily the norm. And that to me, that's almost like Cinderella. And again, you want to make sure that you give yourself the best chances to apply something that aligns with your skill set. Now, if you don't have that skill set, then do what you need to do then to get the skills up so you can meet the criteria for the job. But to go in and and I've seen people do in my industry. I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, lie about their background experience. What happens, like if the guy's in IT and he's got his wife, is not necessarily in IT, but he kind of helps her fudge through to get into certain positions or jobs. But now, see, the thing is, now once they're in the job, I guess they try to make it work, and now you got experience in the job. But again, I've seen a few of those as well. So again, to me, this is almost it's not lying, but again, your chances of, because again, you're going to get scrutinized one way or another, and so you don't want to bomb per se in that particular situation, especially if you're working with a recruiter or what have you. Make sure that you reach for those things that you can achieve, not looking for the lottery. I don't know your thoughts on this one, Coach.
I was on mute. I mean, yeah, if you don't meet the requirements, move on. I don't want to apply to be for an attorney job or just a high tech skills job and I don't meet the qualifications. Your resume will pretty much dictate the positions you can apply to. That's why it's definitely important to research the position and align your resume that way because, like Brother Bennett mentioned, you lie on your resume, they do a background check, and everything you said comes out not true, they could flag you, and every company within 50-mile radius may not give you a shot. So yeah,
That's right.
just stick to your lane. And again, the more you work, the more experience you gain. And when you do go to a job, I'm big on this. Learn shit outside of your job requirements. Just, if you got opportunity to learn something else within the company, do it. You may not do it at that moment, but when they go down to cutting, they're looking at the ones who are a liability and not the ones that are set to cut first. So
Indeed. Indeed. Shout out to Catellia in the building tonight. I always appreciate you being here. Yes, never lie on your resume. Again, you wouldn't think you'd have to say that, but again, I read through and gone through enough resumes and false interviews and whatnot to kind of know it's like, yeah, this person doesn't this. And the crazy thing about it is, and it's sometimes, well, I would say it is the responsibility of the person who is interviewing, but unfortunately, I've seen where companies will sort of coach people who don't know the job through on the interview. Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll send 3 or 4 people for the same job interview, and then they'll follow up with those people to then ask them the question like, "What did they ask you?" And then prep the next person, say this, say this, say this, just to kind of BS your way through it in order to get the job. I've seen that I've seen that as well. So again, you want to, for conscience sake, you want to avoid that as much as as much as you can. The next one here: refrain from mentioning experiences that are not relevant to the position you want. Stay focused on the position at hand. Again, concise. Again, you can have a ton of different work experience in a ton of different areas. The thing you have to convey is, again, how's your previous job or your current experience? How is it going to play out in the job that you're applying for? So again, that you got to always, anything that you mention in a resume has to have relevance for what you're applying for. So again, any job experience outside of that, don't mention it. Now again, if you're just starting out, you in high school or whatever, again, you applying to the local home Costco or Walmart or McDonald's or whatever it is, some of that stuff may matter. It's just like, look, they understand you're kind of getting started. But if you're trying to get into a career, then again, what aspects of what you did, even in the job that may not apply, if there's something from that job, even though you weren't working in that position, but there was something about the job that can help you in the new position, then by all means mention it. But again, keep it tight because you got a limited amount of space from which to express yourself. Any thoughts on this one, Coach?
No, like I said, if it's not irrelevant, if it's not relevant to the position, don't even bring it up.
Yeah,
Focus on your skills that align with the position that you're applying to. Don't volunteer information if they didn't ask you.
absolutely,
And so, yeah, it's,
absolutely.
it's irrelevant.
All right, the next one: avoid using complicated template and use an easy to read format. So this is what I was saying earlier. Like I said, you can go into Word and there's a bunch of different formats. Some fancy, some not, or whatever. But again, you want clean and concise. Now, again, if you're applying in a position that is like in the arts or in graphics or desktop publishing, and you want to be able to kind of show some of your creativity in that resume, then again, you may want to take a shot at that, as long as the information is legible. So again, you can have a resume with giant fonts on it and pictures and graphics and whatnot, but does it convey what's important in order for you to get the job? So again, keep the clean. Your grammar also needs to be clean. It needs to be concise, not overly wordy. And again, it should be easy to read in the grammar as well as the presentation. Don't use a font that's 8 point, so small you need a magnifying glass to read it, or use one that's giant. Like you wouldn't necessarily use a font this size that in this presentation. Yeah. So so you definitely want to do that. But again, style wise, again, there could be some wiggle room there. But again, work on just getting a basic foundation. Build your foundation first before you start adding on these extra things to it. There's always room to play around, but again, just get the core of it, correct. I'll just go into the next point, Coach, unless you have something to say here.
I mean, no, man. Just find a basic resume. Follow a traditional format. If you're not familiar with, all the creative, fancy resumes, just find you one that's going to lay out the details of who you are, the skills you have, and go from there.
Yeah. Okay. The next, don't again refrain from making your resume too long by omitting unnecessary information. Again, Coach said this earlier, and I think Katelia, she also mentioned it as well. Again, a resume should be no longer than 2 pages at best. Now, again, I've been in the game for over 30 plus years. Me and Coach, we got 30 years plus experience in the workforce. And again, most of that work has been in the IT space. But for the last job that I applied for, because I was at that last job for 19 years, I only listed that one job. I had several jobs before I landed that one, and it was my longest tenure job. But I didn't even list all those other positions that I had because it wasn't going to be relevant. The technology that I used back in 1995, nobody even remembers those tools anymore. So again, I kept it current with the position that I had. Obviously, I listed the time that I was there. I started that position in 2004 actually. And certainly, so but even when I was talking about what I did there, I only focused on my last 2, maybe 3 major work assignment periods. So again, in the job that I had a lot of different roles within that job over the time that I was there. I only focused on the 2 or 3 that was most recent and most relevant. I didn't go all the way back to 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Because again, it wasn't going to be relevant for what I was doing. And what it also does is, now again, I am also I'm also sensitive because I am older. I am also sensitive to ageism in work because some people may say, oh, well, he's got too much experience, or he might be, how old is this guy? So the way I look, this is one of the reasons why I shave my head. This is one of the reasons why I try to stay in shape because I don't want people necessarily knowing that I'm going to be 56 years old this month. I'm competing for work with guys who are in their 30s. So I don't want to give an indication in my appearance of my age. I don't want that to be on the table. So again, I don't want to put 30 years of experience on a resume. It's the last. Now coach said up to 15. I would, if you can, and if it's relevant to the job, I would even say 2 to 5. So again, you want to keep that piece short, but don't age yourself in a resume either. Unless you're going for like some senior management, executive VP position or whatever. Yeah, people typically in those areas, they tend to have a lot of experience. That's how they got to those positions. They were probably some sort of VP or senior level position in the last job or the current job that they're in, applying for this job. But again, you don't want the resume to like Kateri said, three pages. No, that's way too long. And I had to do that because I was at the job for so long, and I had so much experience there, and not including the experience that I had at my prior employers. I had to chop it off, and it got to a point where it's like, just literally just throw it out. So, Coach, any thoughts on this one?
No, that's something I had to learn myself. Just keeping the resume short. When you get all these years of experience in something, you want to seem like you have any experience. But yeah, 2 to 5 pages. I mean, no, not 2 to 5. Maybe, as we mentioned, a cover letter and your resume. That would be it. That would be it. Just keep your resume short and sweet, and highlight the achievements and the specifics of your job.
Yeah,
And no more than 7 bullets at most, and your achievements and education and all those things. But yeah,
yeah.
any special awards, things like that. So
Yeah. Kateria aligns with you. She's saying 10 to 15 years again, focusing on the relevant positions to the job you're applying for. Again, I would go a little bit, especially maybe it's because I'm in the IT space. I may say that is a little bit shorter because you talk about 10 to 15 years in the IT space is a long time, relatively speaking, to the position. And you're also talking about the technology that you're working with. So again, you don't want to go back to, again, citing tools or software that you work with that is not relevant for the time that you're in. So again, software or IT tends to have a shorter shelf life when it comes to technology. So again, if your last 5 years is the most relevant, then again, I would certainly amplify that in the resume. 15 certainly in my field, you might be going back a little bit too far in my personal opinion. But I can certainly appreciate the 15 again, depending on the job that you're going for. The next don't. Again, avoid rushing to submit a resume that you have not carefully reviewed, again, or have someone review it. Again, there are people who are good at this. I've had resume doctors. Because again, especially if you've been with a job for a long time, like you're out of the game. Back in the day, I used to be a consultant. So I would have like 6-month assignments, 4-month assignments, sometimes a year assignment. I had to apply for work all the time. So it was important that I kept my resume up to date because I was going to be floating around a lot. Some of the assignments you got, they were 6 months. Sometimes they extended out. If they like you, they extend you for another 6 months, etc. So you always had a state of a readiness that you were always going to be moving. But once I got kind of settled and comfortable in that job, and this happened for a lot of us, We were so comfortable in our jobs and we weren't expecting those jobs to end, but they did. Not any fault of our own, but a lot of people didn't know how to write a resume. It was just, so it was like literally like you were writing a resume for the first time because this is something that you're just not used to. And so people will reach out to me, hey, I wrote this. Hey, what do you think about this? Whatever. And I may, like I said, I may reach out to someone or have someone who works in HR take a look at the resume. But for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, you can get comfortable. And so, you need to be able to, again, it's not like riding a bike. And especially in a world that's always evolving, new technologies, new terms, new skill sets. You need to get yourself, you need to get yourself acquainted there. You know, and Catelli is right. Yeah, a lot of people do not know how to write a resume, or they haven't had to write a resume in a long time. Because and sometimes you have to have sessions with them where you got to pull out. They forgot what they did. If you've been in a job 15, 20 years, sometimes you got to think about, what did I do, or what did I do that was praiseworthy? What is something I can highlight? They got to go because the job is almost like it's automatic. You know what I'm saying? Like you do your job without even putting thought. Like, coach, I'm sure like people who you might be there physically for 8 hours, but you really only putting about a couple hours a day into your job because it's just automatic. It's just boom. I just come in, put my 8 hours in, or 7.5 or whatever, boom, go home, repeat. And you forget yourself. It's just the way things are. So when they have these companies close, companies go bankrupt, mass moves, mergers, acquisitions, when those things happen, people have no idea. And it's like, oh, I got to start over. So she's right. A lot of people don't know how to write a resume, or they forgot. But when I was consulting back in the day, yeah, I had my resume current. Like, I could get dropped at any time or dropped to somewhere. Boom, here's my resume. Boom. Any new experience, anything I learned, update the resume. Boom, have it ready for the next consultant, the next client. Boom, here it is, or whatever. I would be trying to get jobs. If a job was ending in that 4th or 5th month, let's say if it's a 6-month assignment, 4th or 5th month, I'm already out the door getting, interviewing for my next assignment. So it was that constant readiness that you had. But yeah, people got comfortable. And so I had to take my resume, which I didn't update in a long time, redo it, break it down, had a person say, look, we got to build this from scratch and pull out what at the end of the day that I felt not only had the substance that it needed, but also conveyed the message that I wanted to convey to potential employers. So don't let pride get in the way, and let somebody who has experience, like shout out to Catellia, let somebody with experience give you critique and be able to really bring you up and address what needs to be addressed in your resume. And but again, I appreciate, certainly for older people, it can be very scary when you have to kind of get out. It's like being married for a long time, coach, and you got to get out there and try to date again. A lot of people I mean, how many times in the manosphere space we talk about, we get chided, right? Because oh man, you guys are so old, y'all been married so long, y'all don't know what's out here. How many times do we hear that?
Every
Y'all don't know
time
these
you
women.
come,
These women are different today, bro. They ain't like the women y'all married the last good ones. These women out here, they ain't. So again, we get that as well. So yeah, I would be. I don't know about you, coach, but I'm not trying to get out there again.
man, listen,
You
I
know what I'm
don't even want to talk about that cesspool out there, bro.
I'm just saying. But so I
I know I
understand
ain't going out there.
in the dating, you don't want to get out there if you've been with something for a while, but let alone the job market, especially when you're older and the perception is people, well, I can get people half their age and do it for half the money. So again, that is always a concern, which is, like I said, one of the reasons why try to keep myself in good shape, keep this mind sharp, always learning, never thinking I'm arriving, taking on new skills and responsibilities. Because again, I want to stay relevant in today's world, not talking about what was in the last one. Now, I could tell you she has an interesting comment here. A cover letter is crucial to have with your resume, especially when you're applying for competitive positions or when descriptions specifically request one. Yeah, I would probably say the latter. We talked about that before you got on tonight, and I've been, going back and forth. I've seen different debates on it. I think in today's time, I think cover letters are becoming, generally speaking, I'm not saying it's not relevant in specific positions, especially as you said, if they ask for one. But I'm seeing fewer and fewer jobs that are asking for a cover letter in a job. So my advice was cover letters, I think, work best in situations where you had an opportunity to network or meet potential jobs or recruiters ahead of time. It's a good way to sort of reintroduce yourself to the people who you met. But just in my field, certainly in IT, when you apply for jobs and positions and whatnot, very few. Some I've seen a couple links that says upload your resume or upload the cover letter to your resume. I have both on the ready. But I think it's becoming less. What I'm also saying that's more valuable is, and we'll talk about this in upcoming shows, writing a thank you letter after the interview is over is becoming more something that's in vogue now versus the cover letter. But again, it may be industry specific, but again, I'm not seeing as much relevance as it was back in when I first started, in the 90s. Yeah, it was like, yeah, resume, cover letter, they went hand in hand. You didn't separate them because a lot of times you mailed out those resumes to potential employers or whatnot, and you had to use that nice paper, coach. Remember that nice linen paper and them linen
Yeah.
envelope and those linen envelopes back then. The nice cover. Real. It was almost like you're writing on cloth. It was so fine when it was out there. So yeah, if you want to get fancy with it, all that went together. Your cover letter and your resume were mailed. The cover letter's on top. They open it up and read the cover letter and then your resume. But when you talk about online submissions, which most people are doing now, not as much. But again, I think they can be useful. But again, and have one on the ready. But I think it's certainly the resume is going to be better. Resume onion paper. Never heard that one. We use it back then. We used
Yeah.
linen. That fine linen paper. That was the thing back in the day.
Yeah, it's an onion paper now. I know in
I never heard that one, but I checked that out. Another don't, it says don't include long, generic, objective statements. Again, clear, concise, specific statements to the job being applied for. Again, your opening. So again, this is where you read ahead of time of what the job is, and then your description should be specific. So again, you're gonna have, if you got 20 jobs that you're applying for, you may submit 20 different resumes. Again, depending on the title, but don't just have one and you're just going to just spray it out there to everybody. These days with software or soft applications, make sure you give yourself some flexibility to achieve a position that allow me to use my skill sets in communication. I mean, that's not saying anything. Make sure that you have those. Make sure you have those specific points. Certainly, certainly to the job. You're almost done here. Do not use personal pronouns like I, me, my on a resume. Hiring managers already know that you're talking about yourself. Instead, use different action verbs. We talked about that earlier. Created, executed, managed, implemented. But don't have and I used to see this again. Young people was writing resumes. Well, I did this, and then I did this, and I did this, and I did that. No, use language that's more action oriented, more so when you're writing a resume, but never use personal pronouns in a resume, especially when you're describing um, accomplishments, achievements, or things that you did in your job. Any thoughts on this one, Coach?
No, I just this is about as simple as it gets. You know, again, they know who you are when you submit your resume, when your name, when you respond to the name that you put on your resume. And again, don't overcomplicate it. You know, they know what you're doing just based off the job skills that you listed. So yeah, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Definitely stay away from pronouns. I wouldn't recommend putting a pronoun in your name on the resume. Stay away from that. You know, that would be something that can maybe shared at a later date, but I definitely wouldn't do that. Although companies can't discriminate against that, but I just wouldn't recommend putting it there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll understand that from your name, but um, you know, I said me and Coach our names. I don't know if they would apply she, her, on assume anything other than that. But again, these days, you never know. But yeah, you definitely want to keep you certainly want to keep things as generic as possible. Could tell you again, Mr. Bennett, you could also list your career benchmarks on your resume. Again, I think we talked about that under highlights. So I think those are sections within the highlights of a resume where I think you can certainly list those things. Or in some people, they may do it at the end of a resume, but I like to kind of interweave it into the job itself. As I'm listing items, like I said, I don't use when I list a position or a period of time when I was at a job, I don't just talk about what my daily responsibilities were. I'm going to mention a lot of those benchmarks in those positions where I'm describing my work history. So I think that's a place where I think it's appropriate to do that. But yeah, certainly your benchmarks, yeah, you definitely want to get them in the resume. I just think the position sections of the resume is the best place to put those. I think we got one more, Coach, and then we can start to land this plane. Yeah, I think I already did that one already. So we can certainly move this from the floor. One thing that I wanted to highlight that I didn't talk about so much here. This may take place more so in a cover letter, um, more so than the resume. I don't think the space is in it for a resume. A lot of times in a resume, and again, this is just personal for me, and I've talked to different HR people. One of the sections, if you looked at the listing of what goes into a cover letter, one of the things that it talked about is why do you think you're qualified for the job? I think you got to be kind of careful with that personally, in that listing your achievements, accomplishments, skills that would fit nicely with the job that's there. I would rather the people who are reviewing the resume figure that out. And I would also let them figure it out in the interview process should I get the chance to earn one. But I've seen a lot of people say in the cover letter, especially, it says, "Well, I think because of these things, I think I'm qualified for this job." I don't think that's yours to decide. You're not the buyer. So learn how to, I guess, talk about again your accomplishments and how your skill sets align with the job, but save judgment for those who are buying. Because anytime I've seen that, I'm like, that's kind of, at least to me, how it reads to me, I was like, that comes off kind of arrogant or entitled. I don't know which one. So again, you got to choose that language very carefully. I remember working with a guy years ago, and that was his thing too. He just, so this, I think because of this, and this, I think I deserved. I think he even said deserve. I think that's why I deserve the position. It's like you don't deserve anything. Let your record speak for itself. Let your schooling, your accomplishments, your work history, and whatnot, the things that are relevant, let that speak for you. or if they ask you specifically. Now, again, this is more so in the interview process, which we will cover as you're going through those, as you're going through, the interview part. They may ask, so, what makes you qualify for this position? Then you can kind of spend a little bit based on what you've done and how would it apply to that position. So I think there's a line you have to walk there between being confident in your abilities and how you think your skill sets apply versus coming off as arrogant or cocky in the process. Coach, I don't know what you think about that. I think it's a fine line. And I see it certainly with younger people who just think that they just the bomb, they just the ish, and they haven't done anything yet. And sometimes they got to get some humble pie to realize that, oh, you're not as good, especially when you get turned, 20, 30 resumes and you didn't get any callbacks yet. Again, and if that's what you're conveying in your resume, you may want to, or your cover letter, you may want to pull back and reassess some things. Hungry, but humble, and in that process, and understand they're the buyers. You need to make a case why they should buy you. But don't oversell yourself. This whole manosphere space came out because a lot of people, a lot of women, were overselling themselves. Same thing in the job market. Don't do the oversell. Katera says there are ways to humble brag about your skills. Yeah. But again, it's an art, and that's where, again, getting someone else's opinion, a third-party opinion, an objective opinion, matters. So understand, they'll say, so Coach, your final thoughts, I guess, on that point specifically, or anything that you want to kind of close the show with. But that to me is a line that, again, and all of us may have been there at some point. And again, we might have needed a little bit of humbling. But what are your thoughts? I'd really like to get your 2 cents on that as we try to land the plane.
I mean, just in reference to the comment, yeah, I think that there are ways you can do it, and that's when we talked about earlier, just highlight on your accomplishments, things that you were able to implement within the company or agency that brought a improvement to the overall function of the job, not just for yourself, for everyone. Yes, definitely do that, but I wouldn't say that I was the best at my job doing ABC. No, just it was just highlighted, and people can read through the lines sometimes. Read between the lines. There you go. Just about things that you've done, and they'll see if you list it, correctly. They'll be able to see the accomplishments without you saying, "Yes, I was the best at my job," and ensuring everybody got an email or something, something that's not relevant. But yeah, stick to the job highlight some of the things within the job description if it aligns with what you're saying. Just ensure you have certain words that align with what the company is looking for, and just go from there, man.
Absolutely.
Interviews getting this job. But yes, a resume is a very important part of it. That put eyes on you prior to them calling you tomorrow or next week when they start the interview process. But a resume can typically get you in the door and may put you in that group of interviewees. So yeah, make sure your resume is up to par. Put another set of eyes on it to ensure you didn't miss any words that are needed or miss it can be anything, comma, left a bullet point. Yeah, just let somebody read it that you trust. And if you don't know anybody specifically, there are agencies that you can pay, or there's a college somewhere around. If a local city college somewhere, you can, especially if you're a former student and you're looking for that resource. It's always opportunity. Even for veterans, there's veteran service officers at your local unemployment offices if you take your resume over there, they'll sort of update it a little bit to today's requirements. And I
Yeah.
just found that out myself
Yeah.
a couple of
And
weeks
if
ago.
you're right, and if you're in school, if you're still in school, then again, you should have within your school, whether it be guidance, I don't know what they call it in college, but career offices or whatnot, they should have people there that should also be able to help you in terms of helping you craft the resume. If not offer courses. In fact, I was talking to my daughter before the show. They had courses in college when she was at the business school in terms of how to craft the resume. So again, there should be some people, some eyes that should be able to put on your resume, especially if you know people who work in a profession. Even if I work in a office, if I didn't critique resumes, whatnot, I mean, I know, I mean, I network, like, you know, I know the people in HR, and I'd be like, you know, hey, I got a friend of mine that looking to apply, not necessarily for this job, but would you do me a favor and could you just look over their resume and just give them some pointers on how they could improve it? You know what I mean? So again, find somebody who works in an HR type of capacity. They can really give you some help in terms of, you know, things that are relevant and things are not relevant in the resume. If you don't have the money to pay, like I said, a resume doctor, whatever, and even then, I mean, resume doctors, they don't charge a ton of money to look at a resume. And again, how much is it going to really cost you at, you know, at the end of the day? And a lot of times, if you go through a recruiter, then they're going to help you build a resume because again, it makes sense for them. So you meet a recruiter, they talk to say, hey, I think you got some skills or whatever. Give me a resume. They may come back to you and say, hey, we need to change some things or we need to improve some things. Because again, that resume also reflects on them because they're sending you out as a representative of them. So they may call you back and question some things and say, hey, can you highlight this or that or whatever before you go out? They're not telling you to lie, but they understand the client that they're working for, what the client need is. And sometimes they'll give you some things to say, hey, your resume should focus more on this experience over that one. And take their advice and have that as a separate resume that you can then go back to in the future. One that may amplify your skills. You may have several skill sets, but for a particular position, they may say, we need you to highlight this one or this set of skills before you before you do it. And yes, there are certainly many online tools to help with resume building and whatnot. I still like the human touch myself. You know, again, I know AI can do some amazing things, but I still like I still like it, and I'm kind of surprised at this point actually that more companies aren't more suspicious of resumes that are AI generated. Because again, I'm call me old school, call me old fashioned. If a resume looks too good or sounds too good, I might be a little sus because that's just me, coach. I'm like I said, I've had to go, especially I've worked with international clients. I work with folks from different countries, and especially in some of these places, they'll do anything to get a job, anything, say anything to get a job. And so again, I want to see, and I've always prided myself on making sure that the resume is my personal statement about who I am and what I represent, and I should be proud of what I submit. That's OG. That's just OG, Mr. Bennett. I would never put something out there that I couldn't explain, that I couldn't justify, that I couldn't stand behind, that I wouldn't be proud of. And so if you want to rely on AI to do everything for you and it doesn't even speak to you, I think that's a disconnect that I don't think serves anybody in the long run. But this is just one bald opinion. But again, your resume is about who you are and what you want to represent about yourself. Be ready to defend it, stand on it. And if someone questions it, you push back on it. but don't let a computer speak for you and put you in a position where you got to then justify some stuff that you can't even back up. So I think that's kind of all I want to say on the topic tonight, Coach. Any closing thoughts you may have? And yes, Katalia, we will have like our next show. We'll talk about the interview process. So again, we started out with job search. Now today we dealt with cover letter and resume. Now we're going to move to the next section, which is the interview process. So look forward in the next show or the next set of shows where we be dealing with that. So this is just another section we decided to go into. But hopefully this has been useful and beneficial. And to our guy who was in here earlier, again, I didn't see your information posted. You can look me up on Instagram. Just look for Paul T. Bennett on IG. And you can find me if you want to send me your information. And like I said, I'd be more than happy to review it or look through it. I could also share it with the coach. He give his 2 cents on it if you want to do that. So Paul T. Bennett on IG, you'll find me. And if you want to submit your resume, just kind of get a sense of where you're at. Be more than happy to do that for you. Just for time's sake, we wouldn't have certainly time to do it here, and I don't think it's necessarily the appropriate place to critique someone's live resume in a live podcast. So, Coach, any final words as we close out?
No, man, you covered it all, man. Hopefully, someone stumbles across this information, man, and, just take the necessary steps to ensure that they are completing their resume in the proper fashion. There is more than one technique, so don't get bogged down on one technique. But again, do your research before you apply to a company. Ensure that you know the position that you're applying to, and prepare yourself. Like you say, next show we'll be doing preparing for the interview. So once you start getting your resume out and you've done your research, and maybe once you get a follow up phone call, prepare yourself for the interview. And that could be a lengthy process if you haven't done it in a while. Yes, it is a little scary, but uh, we'll cover that, so you'll be fully prepared when you get that $100,000 gig like everybody on YouTube has, and then you can send us some super chats, with your new job, and thank us for the holidays.
Anybody who gets a job based on this information, you got to send us 10%, man. That's just
10%.
Show some love to us
A
if we help
piece.
you. If we help you land
10% a piece before
if
taxes.
there you go. If we help you land something, but yeah, hopefully this has been beneficial. Again, we're just two guys here, just with some experience, and we're just trying to share what we can. Take what you will. Supermarket approach as always here, and but we're just trying to help. We're just trying to lend our ear and hand to anybody, young or old, who could benefit from the information that we're sharing. So appreciate you guys for being with us tonight. Again, make sure you hit the like button as you leave the show tonight. Stay tuned over the weekend. I know me and some of the guys, we're going to be in New York City. We're going to be at Comic-Con this weekend. So expect on the Sparta HQ channel, we may drop some lives or some shorts, certainly from Comic-Con, looking to have a good time and have some fun this weekend. Peter, David, we're all looking to get together and, have a good time there. So looking forward to, the weekend. And, so we'll take it from there. But again, we thank you guys once again. For myself, Mr. Bennett, and for the coach, the new coach on the girls basketball team. So certainly looking forward to the wins and the victories that will be coming because he's been added to the roster. And so again, from us to you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. Yeah, I know it's going to rain, but we'll be indoors. We'll be in the Javits. So take care. God bless. We'll see you next week. Good night.